Hey, what's up, guys? Just got off a phone call with a potential client looking to move to North Idaho, asking all about Hayden, Idaho. So I thought, you know what? It's about overdue now. I think it's time to do 5 pros and 5 cons of what it's like to live in Hayden, Idaho. Gonna round up Lexi and Cody, hop in the conference room. So if you're interested in the pros and the cons of living in Hayden, Idaho versus everywhere else, stay tuned. Let's go. All right, guys. Got Lexi, got Cody. We're in the conference room. We're talking about Hayden, Idaho today. We always get a ton of calls about what it's like to live in North Idaho, whether it's Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Rathdrum, Hayden, Sandpoint. And I feel like a lot of people recently have been asking questions about Hayden, Idaho in specific. It's a very small city in compared to some of the other ones in our area, but it's very unique as well. And so we're going to go through 5 cons, 5 pros about living in Hayden, Idaho versus everywhere else. So let's get right to it, guys. All right. We're going to start you out with cons because obviously we want you to stay till the end and listen to all the pros because it's an amazing spot to live. But number one, rising housing cost in Hayden is number one. What would you say? It's probably the highest median price point in the whole area?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think most people in this area are looking at Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, Rathdrum. It definitely seems to be the highest in terms of, price per square foot. What you kind of get, best bang for your buck. And it seems to keep going up, it doesn't,
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I think part of why it's so high is because there are not very many houses in Hayden. It's just a very small place and there's not a lot of room to build. So there's not going to be a lot more houses anytime soon. And then you have the lake, and Hayden Lake and the country club area makes up a good portion of our houses in Hayden, and they are very pricey homes. They're beautiful, big, lakefront properties or, gorgeous golf course living homes. So between the two, I think it pushes their price point up.
It does, and I like to tell clients too that Hayden's kind of split down the middle in terms of affordability too.
East-west?
East-west, yeah. You have 95 that goes right up the middle, Highway 95. Obviously from Coeur d'Alene to up through to Canada, really. But Hayden, you have the east side of Hayden, which is that country club area. You have Hayden Lake. There's some pockets in there as well that are a little more affordable. But when you're west of 95 and still in Hayden, there's a lot of new development going up, new construction.
Yeah.
There's kind of an area like in Miles and Orchard that have big lots, almost like a Dalton Gardens feel, but a lot lower price point. You're gonna get a little in that area, a little bit more mixture of some nice houses and then some junky cars in a lot. But overall, Hayden's housing costs are high. I think more because it's just kind of a center for the lake and the golf courses. All right, number 2, cons of living in Hayden, Idaho: limited local job opportunities. And I would say that's growing a little bit, but ultimately there's not really they're trying to make a downtown kind of on government way, but there's never really been a town center where there's a lot of businesses. Everything's kind of sporadic.
It's not super walkable usually. They have added the little parades and things over the past 10, 20 years, but it doesn't have a downtown feel the way that Coeur d'Alene does. And it's a really small town when you actually think about the
population.
The population and the actual footprint of Hayden. There's just not a ton there. So, decent chance if you live in Hayden, you're going to drive at least into Coeur d'Alene probably to work, which is not a big deal. It's, no big deal at all, especially if you're, coming to I live in Coeur d'Alene, but maybe 3 minutes north of me is Hayden, so.
Right.
Yeah, and I think even if you're driving north on 95 from Coeur d'Alene, I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're in Hayden. When they hit Hayden. There just really isn't. I don't foresee there really being a lot of.
The only thing I foresee growing is in the north, like the Lancaster 95 intersection. There's a lot of commercial land out there by the Lancaster Market, and that way that could grow and bring in more businesses, I think, in the future. There's a lot of those businesses that are like those shop businesses in the Warren
Warren
K Park.
There is. There's some dealerships out that way.
But overall,
airport.
Overall, the local job market is centered around Coeur d'Alene and really in Post Falls when you get over towards like Pleasant View, Beck Road, all those commercial
towards
developments.
State Line.
Yeah, towards State Line. Sorry about that. Number 3 con: traffic congestion is growing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say there. So my youngest goes to school in Hayden, and so I drive. Hayden's not. There's not a lot of 4-lane streets. I mean, really, it's just 95 basically. So if you get stuck at the light at Honeysuckle and Government Way, you could sit there a few cycles. It's it can get backed up certain times a day. But if you're like me, you know all the side streets and you just go around all that and avoid it. But
your realtor Jedi driving tricks. Yeah, no, I love it.
But I mean, it's definitely busier and it's a little congested because it's built as a small town. So it doesn't take much.
And I would say traffic congestion I always think of it pretty much as 95. Mm-hmm. And that really ties Hayden and Coeur d'Alene together. And so if you're going south, it's, on a busy day in the summer, 95 is going to take a little bit. So you got to find the ways around it. They've always had ideas of like doing a Hutter bypass from I-90 to bypass the 95 because all the trucks have to go up through 95. But that's maybe 10 years in the future. So right now you do have some traffic congestion up there. I always feel like it's kind of crazy when you're in Hayden. Sometimes it takes you as long to get to downtown Coeur d'Alene in the summer as it might to get to Sandpoint. Mm-hmm. So that's number 3. Number 4 con: limited dining and entertainment options.
I think dining has gotten better.
A little bit.
So
there's still not that many places in Hayden.
I moved to Hayden in 2005 and lived there until 2019, and then we moved back to Coeur d'Alene. And it's so much better than it was in 2005. So I might be biased, but I mean, there were like 2 restaurants I feel like that we could, everyone knew our names, but. There's some good places. There's some cute little breweries, a pizza place that's good out there.
The Porch is awesome.
The Porch is
Parallel 41 is a newer place that's good.
So I think it's better than it used to be. I don't know that there's any, concerts or those kinds of things in Hayden. It's just too small. But again, you're so close to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane and all of the other places that.
Yeah. And this is just a public service announcement for everyone watching. If you have a background in like a fancy steak restaurant, steakhouse, just please bring it here because that's what we need. Hayden would, I mean, if there was a high-end steakhouse, my favorite place, unfortunately, in Coeur d'Alene burned down last year, Wolf Lodge Steakhouse. And so we need one in the area. So limited dining options in Hayden is a real thing, I think. It's getting better, though.
Yeah.
And number 5, I mean, this just really isn't Hayden specific, but I guess if you're getting a little north in Hayden, the long, cold winters, I would say more in the Rathdrum, Spirit Lake, Athol area is a little bit rougher than other areas. But long, cold winters, I mean, that's just it's a Hayden thing, but it's not specific to Hayden.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're North Hayden and especially northeast of the lake, it can get pretty rough, especially if you live. I mean, the other thing about it too, and we didn't really touch on it, but also that part of Hayden has some you virtually have no cell service once you get to the northeast side of the lake. So in the wintertime, you could be very isolated out in that particular area, and then the roads get a little sketchy and dicey around the lake for sure.
I do think they get more snow in Hayden than we do in Coeur d'Alene.
For sure.
Especially as you get up north, into the Garwood area. I can drive up there and the roads in Coeur d'Alene are clear, and it's you start, the further north you start to get back into winter a little bit. So
for sure.
It holds on a little bit longer out that way.
Cool. Those are 5 cons. Okay, now let's switch it up. We got to talk about the pros because there's a lot of pros about living in Hayden, Idaho. People absolutely love it. And let's kick it off with number 1, small town feel, but nearby amenities as well. I mean, it is a small town feel for
It's
sure.
for sure a small town feel, but I think when people want to move up here, it has a certain prestige almost that people kind of covet Hayden above other. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Like you want to live in Hayden. It's like a desired
Yeah.
zip code almost.
Yeah.
I always get like the reference to like Lake Tahoe or
Yeah.
Big Bear. When you get towards the country club and that side of Hayden, it definitely has that like mountain town type of feel.
The Rimrock Meadows, the Fox Hollow neighborhoods. I mean, there's some very beautiful neighborhoods, and and especially on the east side of 95, like we talked about before. That's where everyone pictures Hayden, and
I always forget.
It's really
The other
like
side.
giant pine trees, very quiet. I think that's the other thing. People come to Coeur d'Alene or North Idaho and are looking for homes, and then they find Hayden once they tour, and they're like, man, we absolutely love Coeur d'Alene, but it's kind of touristy. You know, there's a lot of, in the summertime, it gets real busy downtown, whereas Hayden, you're pretty much in Coeur d'Alene, you're in the Coeur d'Alene School District, but it's quieter. You're more like tucked away in Hayden Lake, I feel like. And you're right, there's a little prestige that comes with it. And that's the country club, I think, the higher end homes around the lake. It is what it is. But it also goes back to one of the cons where you're going to pay a little bit of a premium on your listing, on your housing prices up there versus Post Falls or even parts of Coeur d'Alene. So, but very small town feel. There's a lot of neighborhoods that do like little golf cart parades at the 4th of July.
A lot of golf carts going to
A lot
Hayden
of
Meadows
golf carts, yeah,
for school in the morning, for sure.
Number 2 pro of living in Hayden, Idaho is going to be access to outdoor recreation. That can be kind of an overall statement for pretty much every town in North Idaho, but Hayden specifically, you have quick access to, all the exploring, hiking, biking, boating, anything you want to do is right at your fingertips.
Yeah, you've got the lake, you've got English Point, you've got Sportsman's Access. You're a little bit closer to Schweitzer Mountain than you are in Coeur d'Alene because you're north, and there's just tons of outdoor recreation. You're right by Canfield Mountain, which is sort of centered around Dalton, but goes north, and it's just, there's a lot of outdoor stuff to do in Hayden for sure.
Yeah, it's a little more boat, use friendly lake in terms of like if you like to surf or ski or any of that. Coeur d'Alene gets pretty rough, even on bluebird, beautiful sunny days. It can be pretty rough on the lake. So Hayden is a little more protected and gives you a little bit better option especially if you like to surf.
It's a lot less touristy too, because there's really one main boat launch.
Yep.
And even then, it's not a great boat launch. So
you gotta get there.
you gotta really want
get there early.
Get your boat there, and the parking isn't great, so that just kind of limits the number of people who don't just have their boat, at their property or at, what's the marina called now? It used to be Tobler's.
I think it's Hayden Lake Marina.
Okay, yeah. There's one main marina, I guess, and so you just have less boat traffic, so you've got more of the lake to yourself. And it is one of my favorite views in North Idaho is sitting at Honeysuckle Beach, looking out at the dock and the mountains behind it. It is like just amazing. It's one of my favorite views.
Incredible. All right, number 3 on the pros of living in Hayden, Idaho is lower crime rates. Nationally, when you look online, and then I think within our area as well. When you're up in Hayden, again, you're kind of in a pocket. You're kind of isolated. It's very small town feel. Anywhere that has more of a downtown and more of a tourist area, I think it's going to have a little bit more percentage in crime rates, whether it's downtown Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls, where a lot of the things are happening and a lot of our events happen. But overall, North Idaho has a very low crime rate nationally, but Hayden is even, I think, a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think, and we could say this for North Idaho in general, but I think just your friendliness of neighbors and willingness to kind of watch out for each other's property and stuff like that is big in this area, and Hayden's no exception to that. I mean, I think your neighbors generally are always going to look out for you if you're not around or whatnot, so crime tends to be much lower.
Yep. Cool. I'm going to pull an audible on what we have on this list. We have a number 4, and I'm going to switch it up and say schools in Hayden. Because I think when you look at which schools perform the best, elementary school-wise, Hayden Meadows Elementary, Coeur d'Alene High School would be the high school that people in Hayden would go to. And then there's also some new schools popping up, like Hayden Canyon Charter is a charter school that just popped up, and Dalton is kind of close to Hayden as well. So I think when you look on the map of how schools are performing, Hayden is at the top of the list when you combine it with or look at Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls. I think that would be a big pro.
Yeah, I would agree. As I mentioned, we lived in Hayden for a long time, so my kids all went to school in Hayden, and then when we moved into Coeur d'Alene, we just kept them there because it was such a great school, and I'm a firm believer that you don't mess with it if it's working. So I've continued to drive for the past 6 years into Hayden every day to take a kiddo to school there, and this is actually my last year. It's kind of bittersweet. So I know. Been at that school since 2008.
No crying on our pros and cons video.
All right.
Come on.
Not today.
All right, and number 5 pro of living in Hayden, Idaho is the growing community and new development, and not in a bad way. I think little by little Hayden is growing, and like Lexi was saying, that's bringing in more dining options, and a lot of that growth is more on the prairie side, but there's becoming more housing opportunities with new construction. There's more just amenities as a whole coming into Hayden, whereas a lot of times when you lived in Hayden, you used to come down to Coeur d'Alene for a lot of your shopping or whatever you're doing, and now it's almost like you don't have to come south the prairie if you don't want to. So yeah, I think that's a big thing, and it does have a lot of potential for growth in the future too.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, I was focusing on the east side, and there's not as much room over there in Hayden to expand. But you're right, on the west side, there are lots of much more affordable housing options and opportunities for growth, and we're getting more of those the little neighborhoods that have some built-in restaurants and things like that. They're kind of thinking through neighborhoods and communities a little better, and parks and that kind of stuff, which is cool.
I think it's well designed up there, and with the new restaurants and stuff, it just gives you more things to do.
And also, I think, at least from experience and talking to builders and stuff, the city of Hayden is pretty easy to work with when it comes to building and stuff compared to maybe some others. And then they also they do allow in a lot of areas ADUs, which is big for multi-generational. So any city that's willing to work with builders and plan for the future and look at what housing needs are is important.
Cool. Well, we hit these bullet points of things, but let's kind of wrap it up with just our overall feel, because we live here and experience it, and we take a lot of clients through the different cities and what they like and what they don't like. I mean, what is your overall, just kind of like a 10,000 foot feeling of Hayden and why people like it so much?
I think for me, it comes back to kind of what we said earlier. When you think of your North Idaho dream, when people come up here, when we do our tours and we show everybody around, it seems that Hayden was where everyone's like, that's the pie in the sky. Like, that's what I see as my North Idaho dream. With tight, close community, beautiful homes, larger lots, access to everything. I think
pine trees, like the Tahoe feel.
Yep.
I would agree with that. I think sometimes people want that and then have to get further away from that because of the price point, but that is the dream, to have that, especially that east side, the pine trees, the lakes right there. You've got, I mean, it's just a beautiful little town. It really is.
Yeah,
And
it has a vibe. It has a
yeah.
feel when you drive through it. I think just recreationally, you have the lake and so many trails, and golf is huge in Hayden as well. With whether it's Avondale or Hayden Lake Country Club, Hayden has a vibe.
Yeah,
and
it does.
we love it. And if that's the right spot for you, we can show you around and show you all the good little nooks and crannies of Hayden, the secret spots that you might not know about, listings that are on the market, and maybe listings that aren't on the market quite yet. So if you're interested in moving up and have been thinking about Hayden, reach out, call, text, or email us, because we can't help you unless you get a hold of us, and we'll find out if Hayden works for you, if it's the right spot. Or maybe it's not. Maybe you want to be somewhere else. So we can find that out for you. So those are the pros and cons of living in Hayden, Idaho. We'll probably do some vlogs and do some house tours of it and some other videos. But until then, we'll see you later, guys.